What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Manny, in case you're new here. Today I'm going to be talking about all about being a behavioral interventionist. So we're going to be going over what a behavioral interventionist is, my application process, interview process, my experience being a BI so far, and also the training that's kind of provided, and also if I think you should get this job, because I've gotten a lot of comments and messages about this job that I do, and I wanted to kind of share what it's like. Okay, so let's start off with what a behavioral interventionist is. There honestly aren't many definitions out there online, so I'm kind of just going to outline what I do in my job and hope that makes a definition for you. Basically, a behavioral interventionist works with children with autism and kind of helps implement programs and run trials to help run programs that behavioral consultants develop for a specific child. For example, a child with autism, that family may come to a behavioral consultant and ask to kind of work on the child's social skills or whatever they think is most necessary at that point. And then once the behavioral consultant determines what the child needs to work on, behavioral interventionists go in and actually work with the child and implement those programs and make sure they are run and so that the children can learn. So that's kind of what it is. It's basically working with children with autism and also having specific goals in mind for training sessions, but honestly the job is super flexible, and I actually work with 2 children right now, and both sessions are completely different from each other even though I'm technically doing the same job. So we're gonna move on to how I found this job and where I think you can find this job as well. So it's kind of a funny story actually. I was looking on campus. I was in the psychology building at UBC, and I was kind of just looking on the wall because I don't know, I really like doing that. People hang up bulletins of their projects, research projects, and also just job opportunities and stuff like that. So I found this listing on the wall and it just said, oh, we're looking for behavioral interventionists that are working on UBC campus or East Vancouver. Like, email this email if you're interested with a resume, and then they can see what they're gonna do from there. So after searching up what a behavioral interventionist is and realizing, oh, there are people that work with kids, I was immediately interested because I love working with kids, and I've also, at that time, I was looking more into getting experience working with kids with disabilities, which was perfect for me because that's exactly what this job is. So I sent over my resume, emailed the person, and was like, I saw your listing and I'm really interested. Here's my resume. Contact me if you need anything else. In terms of the application and interview, I just kind of went over the application. I sent my resume over to the email that I saw on the listing, and then I think that was it. And then she emailed me back a couple days later. So for an interview, basically it's kind of like a regular interview that you'll get in a lot of jobs, you know. We did it over the phone because this was when COVID was starting to pick up, so we wanted to stay at home, and I had a phone call with the lady that posted the listing. She's actually the behavioral consultant that works right above me, so she's kind of like my boss now. But yeah, in that interview, we kind of just talked about my experience working with children. You don't need experience to be a BI. It is definitely helpful, but you don't need it because they will provide training, which I will talk about later. We talked about what I would do in certain situations, if some child with autism was not having a good day and didn't want to do anything that you wanted to provide, like what I would do in that situation and stuff like that. And then we also just discussed like the logistics of the job, because they were looking for specific BIs to work with specific children in different areas. So I kind of was like, am I willing to drive to UBC and am I willing to drive to Vancouver for this job? And I was like, yeah, and we kind of just talked. That was pretty much the interview. I think afterwards, actually, I kind of got ghosted for a couple months because that was when COVID was really bad. It was like early March. And the family that I had originally been planned to work with didn't want to do sessions anymore just because of COVID. So I actually didn't hear back until July. And I was asked if I wanted to work with another child that needed a BI, and since I didn't really have anything else to do during the summer other than my regular job, I was like, sure, I will do it, and it ended up being really fun. And I actually also got to work with a child that's on campus, so now I have 2 children. I don't actually have 2 children, I work with 2 children. And even with the 2 children that I work with, they're so completely different. That's what I love about this job, is that I think it just changes every day, because every day is different for those children with autism. And you'll learn more about it if you actually get a job as a BI, but some days can be so good and we can do so much stuff, and then other days, like the child isn't feeling it and we kind of just play with blocks or do other stuff. Like there's always a way to be teaching these children, even if it's not like through formal trials or running programs. Also, if you want to look for jobs, I actually recommend looking on any website. I was actually scrolling through Indeed, which is a job searching website in Canada. I love going through Indeed. Even though I have like 4 jobs, I just love scrolling on Indeed just like for fun and imagining what my life would be like in those different jobs. But yeah, even just scrolling on Indeed, searching up jobs in Vancouver, like behavioral interventionist was like a ton of the results, because I think everyone's starting up sessions again and previous BIs have left or just aren't comfortable working, so they're looking for a ton of new BIs right now. So if you want to look for a job there, that's definitely an option. In terms of the training, when I first started the job, it was 2 2-hour sessions. This is also all going to be different depending on the behavioral consultant that you're going to be working for. The behavioral consultants work independently, so it's going to be different depending on the person that you're working for. So try to take that with a grain of salt. My experience will definitely not be the same as yours, but this is kind of just what I went through when I was becoming a BI. So for the training, my 2 sessions were very information packed because there are a ton of different protocols and also different types of programs that you have to learn about as a BI. I'm not going to bore you with all the details because there's a ton of different information, but just being able to run different programs like manding, tacting, listener responding, and stuff like that, that the child, like each of one of those will have different responses from a child. Also, part of the training is just being in the job as well. Like I'm still learning right now about what works best for each child, because obviously each child is very different, and I think that's very important to supplement your base knowledge with. So once you learn about the different types of programs we have, different types of reinforcement that we can do, and also like different types of problem behaviors and the cause of those, you can kind of look at the child individually and kind of see what behaviors and programs are being applied to that child and what works best, what doesn't work, and what can we change. Another big part of the training sessions is data collection. So you do have to collect data when you're being a BI and running programs. There's a ton of different like markings that you can do on the data sheet, like full prompt, partial prompt, echoic, gestures, all this kind of stuff that is very nitty-gritty and detail-oriented, which is, I think, very important because you have to be able to observe the child and see if they are even doing part of it. Like, you have to write that down. If you have to help them, what kind of help you're giving them. Is it like a full prompt, just a partial prompt, or just a gesture, stuff like that, as I was mentioning earlier. If you don't understand any of these words, honestly, don't worry, because this is all stuff that you learn as you're being introduced to the job. So I kind of mentioned this before, but the kind of structure of a BI job is basically that BIs work under a junior behavior consultant or just a behavior consultant that develops the programs for the child and the families. And then basically the BIs go in and do all the laborious program running and stuff like that. For BC specifically, I don't know about other provinces, it's kind of complicated because we also work alongside the government. So I actually get paid by Autism BC and like the provincial government, not like the family itself, because in BC each of the families gets a certain amount of money allocated to them for their child that they can use on behavioral interventionists and stuff like that. So I have to request to be paid by the government, and that the government takes the money from the family's account and gives it to me, which is super complicated and all this stuff. It takes a really long time to get paid. Right now it's October and I'm just getting paid for my July and August services, just because setting up took so much time, and then direct deposit information. It takes a lot of time, especially because the provincial government still uses snail mail and you have to mail everything in and they mail everything to you. It's just a huge long time to set up, but I think afterwards it only takes about like 2 to 3 weeks to get paid and get direct deposited with your money. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. I think BIs, that job in particular, is very good at being a supplementary job and not like your full-time income, just because of how unreliable the government is with paying and Honestly, I think that it's very hard to work a 40-hour work week as a BI. It's definitely just a part-time job. My behavioral consultant that is above me, she's like the person that I go to with all my questions and stuff like that. Like, she's just my boss. And I do love that I get to work independently with the child, but also get support from the BCs, behavior consultants, if I need help. In terms of when you first start the job, it is very important for you to build rapport with the child. You can't just go in and expect that the child is going to listen to you, especially even regular kids wouldn't do that, but children with autism, some of them take a very long time to warm up to new people, and it takes them a long time to recognize you and stuff like that. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks, actually, it's just rapport building. So for one of my kids, honestly, we just played with toys the entire session, and I would just give her toys or feed her chips because she loves eating chips. And that kind of helped build our relationship. Like, she saw me as, when I come, I have a lot of fun with her and I give her lots of yummy food, so she likes spending time with me. My other child, we do outdoor sessions, so the first couple sessions was just playing on the playground. I would push him on the swing, sing him songs, talk about, like, ask him questions and stuff like that. The beginning stages of this job is super fun because you kind of just get to play with the child, and the later sessions, like, my job is still super fun, but the first rapport building part is very just enjoyable because you just get to have fun. Then after the first couple weeks, you'll start doing data collection and actually running programs and stuff like that, and depending on who your behavior consultant is and how they do their job, it'll be different for everyone. But then you get to learn about the programs that the child is working on, and then mastering the programs and doing all that stuff, and it's just super fun. The last part of this video, I'm just going to be talking about why I got this job and why I think it's a really good job, and also maybe why I think it's a bad job. So the first part is why I got this job in the first place. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I was actually looking for work experience where I could work with children with disabilities because that was something that kind of interested me at the time. Before that, I am just working at a math tutoring place, and that's kind of, it is teaching experience, but it's very cookie cutter teaching experience, I would say, and I liked it there, but I wanted more experience with kind of like novel situations. I think I was very like used to my job and very comfortable in the position that I was before I got my BI job. So I kind of wanted to challenge myself and get a new job and kind of get more experience with different kinds of children and different kinds of teaching, because I think eventually I've kind of discovered that now I want to go into special education teaching or like developing programs for special education students, how we can better that kind of education for them. So yeah, that was kind of the push on why I got this job. In terms of pros and cons that I've thought of for this job, I'm gonna start with cons just because I can think of them off the top of my head. They're very surface level cons, to be honest. So the first thing is that for me personally, the locations are just a little bit further, so it takes me like half an hour to drive there and back, and obviously I don't get paid for the time that I'm driving to my job. I only get paid for the time that I'm working, so it doesn't really make it worth it for me. But I think the experience overall is more what I'm doing this for, not really like the money, because as I said earlier, I have other jobs that I get money from, so it's totally fine. Other cons is that it can be super tiring just because you have to constantly be thinking about new activities that will interest the child and make sessions fun for them. The best way to explain it is that for one of my children, they go to the park all the time, right? Like, I do outside sessions with them at the park, but they also go to the park with their parents, like they go have fun as well, and I have to think of new ways to make the playground fun so that he just doesn't get bored while I'm there. So if it's like pretending that the swing is a rocket ship or an airplane, or pretending the swing is like a horse that he's riding or something like that, like those kind of things just spice up the swing and make it a little more fun than just like pushing him. And that's just like the most important part. I think also showing children new ways to play with things that they may not have thought of. I don't know, at the parks that we go to, there's like little cars that you can ride that like swing back and forth, they kind of bounce back and forth. And I think one time we pretended that that little car was like a bumblebee, like you're riding a bumblebee, and that was super fun for him. Like he just kept going bzz, 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 bumblebee, like it was really cute. But yeah, just in general, you have to be really creative and thinking about new ways that you can implement new things into session, because if you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again, like it's going to get really boring really quickly, and these kids like thrive off of new experiences. I think another thing that we do that's really fun is like there's a little water fountain in the parks that we go to, and we pretend that we're little fish swimming in the water fountain, or we pretend we're rowing our boat. There is a ton of singing that has to go on. I have never sang more in my entire life. Like every time I finish session, my throat is actually like sore because of how much I have to talk and how much I have to sing. So that's another thing. You constantly have to be talking. Like you have to be very active. This is not a passive job. It's very, very like you have to initiate things. The child is not doing anything. Like you have to sing, you have to talk, narrate the experiences and stuff like that, because you're just trying to help these kids learn more words, learn how to communicate their ideas, learn how to talk and stuff like that. That's honestly a pro and a con. I actually really enjoy being very active and talking and singing. Like I think it's very fun, and I don't think many jobs will let you do that. I honestly think those are most of the cons that I can think of. Like they're very surface level, as I said, and the actual job makes it a lot more worth it. Like me driving, like I like driving anyway, so I don't really mind that it's kind of far away. So some pros of this job that I really love is I think that it allows many opportunities and opens up many doors in terms of like special education and just further career paths, because honestly before starting my BI job I never really thought about special education teaching and stuff like that. I think nowadays I haven't decided fully, but I've set my eyes on kind of education consulting, education psychology, or even being a behavioral consultant eventually, like just moving my way up the ladder and into a higher position job of this sort. Like I think that'd be super rewarding as well. Another pro that I can think of is I think that for me, I have developed a lot of confidence after this job, to be honest. Like I think I used to do other teaching opportunities before I did my BI job, and I was very like quiet and not really active in teaching. But I think now that I've had experience leading sessions, being the only teacher, and like having to be so active, like I am also very active in my other jobs as well. Like I have developed a lot of confidence in teaching and like talk a lot more, which is really good because I think that's what a lot of kids are looking for in general, not even just in a BI job. I also just really like the kids. Like I think the kids that I work with are so sweet and so fun, and even though sometimes they can't communicate their ideas or thoughts to me, like you can tell in their facial expressions that they're having fun, and you can tell when they're learning and progressing. I think that's like the most rewarding part of this job, is when a child masters a program that they've been working on, or when a child can talk to you and can request things that they haven't been able to before. It just makes my day. Like I think 2 weeks ago I was working with a child and I started introducing hold my hand as a request to be able to like hold his hand and show him what holding hands means. And then last week in session he said hold my hand multiple times and requested it, and I was like, oh, so happy because he learned and he could pick it up, and it was just like so rewarding to see that. That's kind of the end of my talk about being a BI. I hope this video was helpful in some sort of way. If you're interested in being a BI, let me know. Leave a comment down below if you have any more questions. I'm sure I forgot something because I feel like there's something missing that I didn't talk about, but I don't know what it is right now. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. Make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I post new videos every Monday at 11:30 a.m. PST. I will see you in my next video. Bye.
And I was like, yo.